Well, it's hard to believe, but we're finally nearing the release of Skadi in FGO NA. Hello everyone, Sober Oni of G&A Reviews here, with a servant spotlight for Scathach's final form, the Queen of Quick herself, Skadi. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade, comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 5-star servants. And before we begin, I do want to stress that this video is going to be a general analysis and overview on Skadi that's going to touch on all of her gameplay elements, not just farming. Because that's going to be a much bigger topic, and I do plan on covering that in a more specialized video coming out soon that will specifically focus on the Skadi farming system. So do look forward to that, but for now, let's move on to Skadi's stats. Skadi has a max HP of 14,406 and a max attack of 10,753, which becomes 9,677 due to her caster class modifier. Skadi has a very high HP stat even among the caster servants, sporting the second highest HP, although her attack is just about average for the class. Outside of the caster class, Skadi's HP is far above average for a 5-star servant, but as expected, her attack is very low. Skadi's stat spread is highly geared towards the support role, with a high HP and low attack, similar to Merlin, Waver, and Tamamo. Taking a look at her skills, Skadi's first skill is Primordial Rune. It increases the quick card effectiveness of an ally between 30 and 50% for 3 turns, and also increases their crit strength between 50 and 100% for 3 turns, both depending on level. Her second skill is Freezing Blizzard rank B, which decreases the defense and critical hit rate of all enemies between 20 and 30% for 3 turns, depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Wisdom of the Great God rank B+, which increases the NP gauge of an ally between 30 and 50% depending on level. As for her passives, Skadi has Territory Creation rank EX, which increases her arch card effectiveness by 12%, Item Construction rank A, which increases her debuff success rate by 10%, and Core of the Goddess rank A, which applies damage plus 250 to all of her attacks, and increases her debuff resist by 25%. As for her deck and Noble Phantasm, Skadi has a Quick Arts deck with Quick Arts Buster and an Arts Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Gate of Sky. It increases the critical strength of all allies for 3 hits or 5 turns between 30 and 50% depending on level. It also applies Evade and Death Immunity for 1 hit, and applies damage cut between 500 and 1500 for 3 turns, depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that Skadi's quick card hits 4 times, her arts hits 3 times, her buster hits 4 times, and her extra attack hits 5 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.67% and a star rate of 10.8%. She has very good NP gain from the high NP gain rate and high hit counts on all of her cards, and she also has above average star generating from the high hit counts and double quick card deck. When it comes to skill and ascension material requirements, Skadi requires a lot of new Lost Belt materials. You'll need 5 Longinus, 10 Eternal Frost, 6 Demon Hearts, and 12 Giant Rings in order to max ascend her. Longinus are best farmed at the Blood Fort in Babylon, where they have an 18% drop rate. Demon Hearts have a 12% drop rate at the Carter Residence in Salem. Eternal Frost can be farmed at Yaga Moscow in Lost Belt 1 with a 45% drop rate, and Giant Rings are a new Ascension material in Lost Belt 2 that can be farmed at the Giant's Flower Patio with a 40% drop rate. As for her skill leveling requirements, Skadi is going to require an additional 15 Eternal Frost, 9 Longinus, 48 Void Dust, and 24 Aurora Steels per skill. Void Dust can be farmed at Charlotte in America with a 64% drop rate, and Aurora Steel is another new Lost Belt 2 material that can be farmed at the Castle of Ice and Snow with a 38% drop rate once Lost Belt 2 releases. There is so much to say about Skadi that it's hard to know where to start. As expected, she does have a very high HP stat, which is ideal for a support. But even better, she also sports very strong NP gain, despite not having the typical 3 art card deck that most casters have. And her star gen is also quite good, which means that she can even be used as a support for crit teams as a star generator if need be. Even her passives are eye-poppingly good. She has Territory Creation EX to further amplify her already good NP gain, Core of the Goddess to more easily resist enemy debuffs in boss fights, and Item Construction to give an even higher chance of landing her debuff skill. Really, her only weak stat is her attack, but that's completely expected for support, so it's not much of a problem. And the good things don't stop there for Skadi. She also has an incredible skill set. Primordial Rune is basically a targetable quick mana burst that also has the added benefit of supercharging your crits. On the crit side of things, this is obviously a very strong buff on any quick based DPS, as it enables their quick cards to do a ton of crit damage and in turn generate more NP. But more importantly, the buff to quick card effectiveness not only increases damage, but also star generating and NP gain from quick cards. Both of these buffs also last a full 3 turns, which means that if you buff a servant who's capable of Noble Phantasming multiple times, you can get an insane amount of burst damage. Servants who have multi-hit quick Noble Phantasms in particular benefit spectacularly from this skill, as it better enables looping for them, and this is going to be a theme you'll see across all of Skadi's skills. And while on the topic of Noble Phantasm looping, Skadi's third skill, Wisdom of the Great God, is a straight up targetable 50% NP charge. Again, this further solidifies Skadi's ability to enable some servants to loop their Noble Phantasm consistently and easily, and this combos excellently with Primordial Rune. It also works very similar to Waver's skill set in that it allows you to very easily farm with any AoE servant, as all you need to do is give the servant a craft essence that grants 50% starting NP charge, like Golden Sumo or Someday in Summer, and they can Noble Phantasm instantly with Skadi. Finally, Skadi has another great piece of utility in Freezing Blizzard. This decreases the defense and crit rate of all enemies by 30%. The crit rate decrease can be useful against some enemies, but the AoE defense down is by far the best thing about this skill. It scales multiplicatively with Primordial Rune to grant your targeted servant a whopping 95% buff against enemies when using quick cards, which allows single target servants to beat over very high HP enemies and AoE servants to clear even the meatiest of waves. Skill order for Skadi can be tricky, as both Primordial Rune and Wisdom of the Great God are such incredibly strong and versatile skills, but I recommend focusing on maxing out Wisdom of the God first, as the 50% NP charge is just too important to not have, followed by Primordial Rune for more damage and NP gain, and then Freezing Blizzard last. All of this, and we still haven't even talked about her Noble Phantasm yet. Skadi's Noble Phantasm is a party-wide buff to crit damage that also grants the team 1 hit of evasion, instant death immunity, and a damage cut. There's a lot going on here. The crit damage buff is decent, especially when paired with her first skill, but this is going to be a primarily defensive Noble Phantasm. The team-wide evade may only be for 1 hit, but if it's timed correctly, it can be a good tool for saving your whole team from an enemy Noble Phantasm. Unfortunately though, the damage cut it gives is minor, and the death immunity rarely ever plays a factor outside of some very specific challenge quests. So if I haven't made it clear enough yet, Skadi can do a lot. She can function as a strong crit support due to her good star generating and insane crit buffs. She can provide good utility and defense in her Noble Phantasm, and she can even be a quick Merlin capable of hyper-buffing any quick servant and turning them into a roided up monster DPS. But above all else is Skadi's ability to enable consistent and dangerously strong NP looping with both single target and AoE servants. So long as you have a quick servant with good NP gain, they can easily Noble Phantasm 2 or 3 times in a row with Skadi's help, all while doing massive amounts of damage with little to no drop off. And this meshes perfectly with the current meta of FGO. Are you facing a big boss with 2 break bars? No problem, Skadi can allow your single target boss killer to clear it in 3 quick Noble Phantasms. Are you farming a lottery event? No problem, Skadi is like Waver on steroids for quick servants. I admit that I'm oversimplifying it a bit, but not by much. Skadi really does trivialize many matchups and events in a way that can make even Merlin blush. However, Skadi does have 2 weaknesses that need to be discussed, 1 minor and 1 major. Starting with the minor one first, Skadi is not an equal opportunity support. There are some quick servants who get way more mileage from her buffs than others. Typically, quick servants who have a lot of card hits or have some kind of innate quick buff or NP gain buff will benefit the most, while servants who don't have those won't. Don't expect a servant like Ku to get as much out of Skadi as Parvati, but Skadi's major issue is that she isn't suited for long battles. Her skills have a decently lengthy 6-turn cooldown, and they're all designed to be used in conjunction with each other simultaneously, which means that once they're on cooldown together, Skadi doesn't have much to offer. Her Noble Phantasm too, while good, is a bit more situational, and it should be saved for key moments rather than spammed out constantly like with Tamamo, Waver, and Merlin. So in other words, Skadi is quite literally only suited for quick fights, pun intended. If whatever it is you're trying to kill isn't dead in 3 or 4 turns, then don't expect much more help from Skadi, at least not until her cooldowns are up. Skadi is designed to kill enemies immediately and efficiently, not stall and drag out fights. Team comp is perhaps the most vital aspect of using Skadi correctly. As I mentioned earlier, you can get diminishing returns depending on who you choose to use her with. Naturally, as is the case with Merlin before her, you almost always want to bring a second Skadi support from your friends list. This way, all of those insanely broken buffs are doubled, and you can ensure that your DPS is able to Noble Phantasm 2 or 3 times in a row easily. Aside from that though, you do want to make sure that the quick DPS that you bring to support is one that has relatively good NP gain. Preferably one with a quick buff or NP charge, and if possible, a lot of hits on their Noble Phantasm. For boss fights, I recommend bringing a quick servant with a single target Noble Phantasm who can fit the aforementioned criteria, like Melt, MHX Alter, and Rider Kentoki. Melt already has a kit designed to combat strong bosses and challenge quests, plus she has good NP gain with an 8-hit Noble Phantasm, and she benefits from Noble Phantasming multiple times because it allows her to stack her quick buffs. MHX Alter similarly has great NP gain for a Berserker with a tremendously strong 9-hit Noble Phantasm, and she has a strong skill set full of buffs which allows her to hit over almost any enemy. And Rider Kentoki fits a similar bill. He does insane damage, has good NP gain, and even has his own 50% NP charge. If you're taking Skadi with you to farm, pretty much the same criteria applies, but just make sure to bring an AoE servant. Servants like Dante's, Zerkerlot, and Rider Ishtar. Both Zerkerlot and Dante's have very high hit counts on their Noble Phantasm, which allows them to NP spam much more consistently with Skadi. And if you're lacking a high NP gain AoE quick servant, then you can use Rider Ishtar as a free-to-play substitute. She isn't as consistent, but she can still make good use of Skadi's buffing thanks to her own NP gain and quick buffs. And as a rider, she does crit very easily. Skadi's Bondcraft Essence is love bequeathed by the gods. It buffs quick card effectiveness of all allies by 10%, and crit strength by 15%. It's a pretty solid Bondcraft Essence as it plays into Skadi's role as a support. However, for more challenging content where you fear an enemy Noble Phantasm, I recommend giving Skadi a craft essence that buffs her NP gain, like Magical Girl of Sapphire, Prisma Cosmos, or Divine Banquet, all so that you can get your Noble Phantasm off quickly in case of emergency. For general support purposes, any CE that generates crit stars is also very strong on Skadi, like 2030, his rightful place, and heading towards Trifas. Giving additional crit stars can help with the RNG of having your DPS land a good crit and getting even more NP gain from it. In the future, I do recommend getting Therapeutic Spa, as it gives Skadi a bit of everything: NP gen, NP charge per turn, and star generating per turn. Overall, Skadi should be considered among the best supports in all of FGO. Her ability to fit into a great variety of quick teams is unparalleled. Her raw buffing capabilities are really unmatched by any other quick supports. She enables many quick servants to reach ridiculous damage numbers, and most importantly, she can easily enable looping strategies for many quick servants, which makes her not only the best farming support in the game, but also arguably the best support for endgame content and taking down OP bosses. That said though, I don't think she's necessarily the best pick for everyone, as she does require some very specific servants to work with in order to get the best results, and she does struggle to provide adequate support in any long battles. That said though, she gets an S from me. What a surprise. While I don't consider her a Merlin or Waver replacement, as they are very different servants, I do consider Skadi to be easily the best quick support in the game, and if you have the right servants, she can be used to trivialize almost any battle or event. And even if you don't have an NP2 Dante's or max limit broken K-scope lying around, she is still one hell of an effective support no matter which quick servant you pair her with. And those are my thoughts on Skadi. While I don't agree with some people that she is the cure-all servant, as you do need a lot of strong pieces around her to make her shine, I do think that everyone should roll for her, even if you are new, because even if you don't have those pieces, she is still one of the best supports around, and she's going to make your quick team so much better. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on rolling for her, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.